So I wanted to point out what I just added to the top of Google Classroom. And it's not under a week, it's just under the general category, but it says class Zoom recordings and notes. So if you were to click on that document, if you missed class, you can find a YouTube link to one of the Zooms. So I basically am going to record one of my 4 classes a day so that if anyone is absent due to sports or injuries or illness or doctor's appointments or whatever, you have access to everything that everybody else got to learn on that class day. You might miss out on some announcements and things like that. It's not a replacement of attending class live or Zoom if you can, but it's sort of a backup plan if you aren't able to make class. So you can see here, I put a link to the YouTube video. I also have a PDF of the notes. So I took a picture of my handwritten notes and I've got that PDF there as well. So that might be useful to someone if I'm going too fast and you didn't get it all, or if you would rather listen and then go back and look at my notes later because you focus better by listening, not by listening and writing. I just wanted everybody to know that I'm going to update that every day if we take notes and if we have a Zoom where I'm teaching material. So it might not be updated every single day if there's a day where we're just doing practice that I posted or something. But when there's teaching and learning going on, I will record one of my 4 Zooms when I teach and learn, and I will include any notes that I've written down so that you have access to them. So that's just going to be a document where I'm going to put the date and I'm just going to keep adding to this one document. So you have one place to look. So you could even bookmark that page or whatever. I don't know if you can do that. I don't know how. Okay. So I wanted you guys to know that that is there. And it's something I'm going to be doing from now on. And so what my plan is for today is we're going to take some very brief notes, and then we're going to be doing some practice, and then we're going to go over that practice. So today's notes, yesterday we learned all about ionic bonding and forming ionic compounds and the steps for doing it. Today's notes are going to be naming ionic compounds. And this is honestly one of the easiest things I teach. But I still like it because it's following really simple rules and it makes you sound smart. And I like really simple rules, but sounding like I'm smarter than I am. So the first step is to write the name of the cation. And the second step, am I sharing my screen for the people at home? Just checking. I hope I am. The second step is to write the name of the anion with the ending "ide", I-D-E. So we're going to change the element's name and change its ending so it says "ide". And that's it. Those are the steps, and we're going to do a few examples. Thank you for those of you in the chat. So yesterday, let's just do the one that we went over yesterday first. We did NaCl, and most of you knew what this one was called. You knew the scientific name. The name of the first element is sodium, and the name of the second element is chlorine, but we changed the ending to "ide". So instead of chlorine, it's chloride. And that's how we name ionic compounds. So here's another compound, CaF, with a little subscript 2. So that means it has 1 calcium, 2 fluorines. And so I want you to try to name that one, see if you can figure it out without me. What's the name of the first element? Calcium. And instead of fluorine, what are we going to write? Fluoride. Have you ever heard the word fluoride before? When do you hear about fluoride? At the dentist, right? It's in toothpaste. It's also in water in some cities. It's a political issue. Fluoride is just fluorine in its ion form. Fluorine, that's -1. It's gained an electron, and that's what fluoride is. But fluoride has some really cool properties. It's a disinfectant, and it can strengthen your teeth and make them healthy. Okay, they put fluoride in really high amounts in toothpaste because what are you supposed to do with your toothpaste when you're done brushing your teeth? Spit it out. For kid toothpaste and baby toothpaste, it's often fluoride free because when you put a toothbrush with toothpaste in a baby's mouth, they immediately start sucking on it because it tastes good. Okay, so you can't give a baby fluoride-filled toothpaste. That would be unhealthy for them because they would ingest it. You can use fluoride toothpaste because you know you're supposed to spit it out. Fluoride is put in some cities' water because drinking water with just a tiny bit of fluoride, studies have shown makes an incredible impact to the health of the teeth of the people who drink that water. But because fluoride in higher percentages is poisonous, it's sort of a political issue where some people think it's not safe to have any fluoride in the water at all. So it becomes a debate. What do they do in pools to disinfect pools? What do they put in it? Chlorine, right? Notice it's in the same vertical column. It's in the same group as fluorine. It's also a disinfectant. Did you know that there's also chlorine in your water? Unless you have well water, there's chlorine in your water. We disinfect water that people drink with chlorine to prevent bacteria from growing in the lines and things like that. Does the water that comes out of your tap smell as chlorinated as the chlorine in a pool? No, the concentration is much less, but in small amounts, it can do the job. When people's whole bodies are going into pools and things like that, and they're trying to disinfect, different things that can enter, they chlorinate it pretty heavy. They don't need to do it at such a high level when you are drinking it. Anyone ever used iodine to, or you know what iodine's used for? What is it used for? Anyone ever used it? I don't know. Do we have any like backpackers or outdoor hikers or campers that have used iodine to disinfect water? They actually make iodine that you can drop in water if you're like camping and you don't know if the water is clean, and it'll disinfect it. They also use iodine for surgeries. Have you ever seen like images where they put that brown liquid and they clean a surgical area before doing surgeries? Iodine is a disinfectant. So is bromine. I skipped bromine. I was a competitive swimmer in high school, and we swam in chlorinated pools. We also swam in brominated pools. Why would bromine be a better material to put in a pool than chlorine? Look at the states of matter. What state of matter is bromine? A liquid. And so bromine is a lot more expensive to put in pools, but once you put it in, it stays in liquid form. If you've ever been to a pool, especially an indoor pool, you can smell the chlorine in the air, right? So that means it is no longer in the pool. And so you have to constantly be putting chlorine in pools because it constantly turns into a gas and evaporates out. Bromine is a good option because it's more, depending on the pool, it's more expensive, but it stays in liquid form, so it isn't evaporating out constantly and having to be replaced. So we just talked about 4 elements that are all in an astatine just isn't as common, so I'm not talking about, I don't have specific examples of that one, but 4 elements that are all in the same group. They all gain 1 electron to become stable, right? Because they're in the same group, they have the same valence electrons, and they all have similar properties. And the properties of those elements are similar because of the way they bond. It affects the way they act and what they do. And so a lot of the vertical columns of our periodic table are going to have similarities to each other because they all bond the same way. And that's just one that's a really good example that you guys have probably experienced before. For instance, all the elements in group 1, except for hydrogen, so lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, those are all extremely reactive to water. If those touch water, they start reacting instantly. Again, because they only want to give away 1 electron, they do it really quickly, and they're super reactive. And so we see similarities in groups because of similar bonding patterns. So I just wanted to mention that when we mentioned fluoride. Wyatt is saying he puts iodine on the umbilical cord of his baby goat so it doesn't get infected. Perfect example of using it as a disinfectant. That sounds really cute. Baby goat. Okay, so let's name just a couple more. Let's do RB3 and then P. Try naming that one. And again, having a yellow periodic table would be helpful because it has the names on it. And mine doesn't. Anyone have a guess on what this one would be called? Go ahead, Annie. Rubidium. This one is actually a little hard. Rubidium phosphide. But if you wrote phosphoride, I understand. And I would never have marked it wrong because you're still doing the "ide" at the ending. Naming is pretty easy, right? The numbers don't matter at all. We're just changing the ending to "ide." So I thought we could look here really fast. And let's try to practice putting "ides" at the end of elements. So what would you say for carbon? Carbide. So we do always take a little bit off at the end. Nitrogen becomes nitride. Oxygen becomes oxide. We got fluoride already. Phosphorus is phosphide. Sulfur is sulfide. Chloride. Selenide. Bromide. Telluride. Iodide. And that's really all the ones we use. And so notice I'm sticking over here with my examples and I'm avoiding the noble gases because in ionic bonding, it's always a metal, which is the rest of the table, with a non-metal that reacts. And there aren't many non-metals that react. So we keep reusing the same non-metals over and over again. So today's assignment for class, or what we're going to do the rest of the period, because I'm done with the notes, that was it, is I have a practice worksheet. And for those of you in person, I do have a hard copy of it. And for those of you at home, it is about to appear on Google Classroom as a material under week 11. And so for the rest of the period, we are going to work on that practice sheet. And then Thursday, we're going to go over the answers and then take a homework quiz on this material. Okay, so you guys on Zoom don't have to stay, but you're welcome to in case you have questions. And we're just going to be working on that worksheet.